Please turn to page 53 for interactive writing. Interactive writing is a time for the teacher and students to plan, talk, write, and then publish narrative, expository, or opinion writing. In this chapter, I'll walk you through the steps, which are a little different for kindergarten and first grade, in order for you to be successful in this dynamic activity that will teach your kids so many skills to be good writers. Let's turn to page 54. On page 54, you'll notice that I have plan, talk, and write. Let me just review very quickly so that you can visualize what this looks like in the classroom. Typically, what we would be doing is we would be planning and talking out our story or our information or our opinion writing. So what I mean by that is this. Typically, the children will be on the carpet. I'll have a piece of butcher paper up on the board with systematic direct instruction steps that students will follow in order to plan a story, informational expository writing, or opinion writing. So up on this board, this actually was a picture of me working with students where I had my butcher paper out. I have a completed plan here of information. It was about a bat and all the different things that a bat can do. So the students had just finished learning about bats. We followed these direct instruction steps in order to plan information about a bat. Down on the carpet here, every time we put information up on the board, we would, the students and I together, would orally rehearse how we were going to write this information. So the plan is you're going to have a blank piece of butcher paper. You're going to have the steps next to the butcher paper. And then the talk is that oral rehearsal that students are going to go through so that they have that academic language in their writing. So they're not just saying, oh, I'm going to write about this or that. They're actually orally rehearsing the sentences so they can revise them over and over again with the teacher's assistance. So the students and you together are following the steps in order to plan information, write a story, write opinions, and then orally rehearsing it. And you follow these steps and orally rehearse through this plan and talk process over and over. Once the information has been planned, then you're going to go to writing, where you actually will be writing out the different sentences of, and in this case, the information that was planned. And each day you'll write one sentence. What I want to show you here for the writing piece is students are on the carpet. Many times they will have whiteboards in their lap. So what I like to do is this. I like to have the kids on the carpet. So if you notice here, this was planning and talking, no whiteboards because we were still planning and talking the story. Down here, the students were on the carpet. They had whiteboards. And then I had a small group of students that didn't have whiteboards. They took turns coming up to the big chalkboard or whiteboard in order to write the sentence. So together we were all writing and learning how to write high frequency words, how to segment words slowly that we didn't know how to spell, to write down those dominant sounds, or later as first grade goes on, teaching spelling skills. So plan, talk, and write. Basically, that's the whole process that you're doing this with children. And this is 15 minutes a day. So that means that you may be spending several days planning and talking out your story, and then finally several days writing out your story. Because every day, once you have your entire story planned out, then each day after that you spend one day on a sentence. So if I had 6 sentences in my story, I need 6 days of writing. Notice over here I also have this little visual. When we finish writing out the sentence up on the board, then I usually choose 2 students. One will be a publisher and one will be an illustrator. So if you notice, I had 32 children in the classroom, 16 were on this side, 16 were on this side. I chose one from each list. I would cross out their name, and then they would draw a picture for that sentence that was written for the day. That would be the illustrator. I would write out on yellow marker the sentence correctly spelled, because now it's going to be published into a big book. So here's an example of the bat story. After we had finished planning over several days our bat information, Then I stapled together many blank pages, 1 page per sentence. I made a cover, obviously, bats, written and illustrated by Room 2, our classroom. And then each day we were writing a sentence from our plan. After we had finished writing our sentence in that 15-minute block, then what would happen is I would choose a child from the list who would be the illustrator, and they would get a blank piece of paper and draw a picture for that sentence. And then I took a yellow marker and I wrote out with yellow marker, correctly wrote each word, because sometimes when you're doing interactive writing, the words may not always be spelled correctly because kids may not be ready for that spelling stage. So I correctly wrote every word, and then the publisher had a black felt tip marker and they would trace those words over. Publishing, not writing. That's why I call them publishers. I said, you're not writing, you're publishing. You're going to put the words up on the page there. So now we have a picture each day, and thereafter we would write the next sentence. The next day after we would write the next sentence and have that published in our book. So each day we would have a new picture and sentence in our big book. What's wonderful about this is now our interactive writing is actually going to have a published piece of writing. This goes into the student library and they can read these books all year. Now I have tons of big books in my classroom. At the end of the year, the kids can take choice of different big books they can take home and keep them forever. This is fabulous, and the kids will want to write because they'll see themselves as writers. Let's go through now and see how this works for kindergarten and first grade. Let's review. On page 54 and 55, we showed plan, talk, and write. Then on page 55, I actually have a visual here of the BAT book that I had just shown you so that you could see what that finished piece looks like. Down on the bottom, you'll see it says weekly schedule. Before I go into each part of this lesson, I want to show you something that's critical. Put a line across your page just like this for the schedule. Up here, you want to write kinder. On the other side, you're going to want to write first grade. Kindergarten teachers, for the first half of the school year, you're going to do plan and talk and then write all on one day. You're going to plan and talk a sentence, and then you're going to write that out with the students. And that's in 15 minutes. Some kindergarten teachers actually plan and talk a sentence on Monday, then on Tuesday they write it out. Plan and talk a sentence on Wednesday, and then on Thursday they write it out, etc. And then eventually they get faster and faster and they plan and talk a sentence and then write it out. This is a 15-minute activity, whether you're kindergarten or first grade. So if I'm planning and talking a sentence and we finally formed it and we have 5 more minutes left, we only use that 5 minutes to write out that sentence where different kids will come up and write different words in the sentence. That's usually not enough time, so I suggest that you just write out the rest of the sentence in front of the students. What happens is, as the year progresses, you're going to be able to have more time to write with the children. But at first, students may need time just to plan and talk on one day, and then on the next day write. Plan and talk on one day, then the next day write. You may need that entire 15 minutes for each one of those pieces of the lesson. But notice we're planning and talking one sentence. Then we move to the next one. These sentences will go together to form a story or information, but they're all done at once. While first grade, what you'll be doing is on Monday, probably through Wednesday, you'll probably need 3 days, you will be planning and talking. So you'll be planning and talking your entire story or your entire piece of information or your opinion. Let's say that you were planning and talking the BAT information. The BAT informational piece was a topic sentence on this top part and 1, 2, 3, 4 details. So we actually had 5 different sentences that were in this BAT informational piece. So you would need 5 days, 1 sentence per day, to write out that entire book. 15 minutes a day. When that timer goes off, I always set a timer, 15 minutes. When that timer goes off, however far we are in that sentence, if I maybe had a couple more words left to write, I, the teacher, would just write it out really quickly. 1 day per sentence. Whether you finish or not, then you record it as the teacher. So visualize that. Kindergarten, you're going to be planning and writing 1 sentence at a time. The sentences will connect, but they're not in isolation. But first grade, you'll plan and talk your whole piece, and then each day after that, you'll write 1 sentence per day. Let's now walk through the kindergarten and the first grade lessons for interactive writing, the plan, talk, and write, so that you can see the differences. Kinder, you'll start to see this is how my kindergarten students will be utilizing the interactive writing activity. First grade, you'll see how the first graders do. Please note though, kindergarten teachers, as the year progresses, you will take on the first grade interactive writing steps where you'll plan all together over several days and then use 1 day per sentence. But at first kindergarten, you don't want to do that. That would be way too advanced for kindergartners. All right, let's move on to the next page so that we can see this process in detail.